Good morning, class. Again, from my house. Where else? I hope everybody is doing well. I hope your families are well. And hope to see you soon. I don't know if we will be back in school, but I do hope that we are, and I do hope that I see you all soon. Okay. World War One. As I said, the Schlieffen Plan failed. It did not succeed. The Russians were able to mobilize very, very quickly, and they threatened East Prussia, Eastern Germany, and therefore the Germans had to weaken the attack on France. The French were able to stop the German advance about 12 miles from Paris, and it was the Battle of the Marne. And after that, the Western Front settled into trench warfare. The Western Front fighting would remain static, and it would rely on trench warfare. These huge trenches. Each army tried to flank each other, and they raced to the north to the English Channel. Well, no one was able to flank anyone, and they both settled in these huge trenches where thousands, hundreds of thousands of men were stationed, and where a few miles of territory was captured at times, but at the cost of tremendous loss of life. The battles of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme, 1915 and 1916, were examples of that destructiveness. Warfare had changed because the technology had changed. These are huge industrialized armies fighting with technologically superior weapons, while the strategies remain fairly obsolete. They were back. They were looking at wars they had fought in the past, not looking at wars they would fight in the future. And as a result, the experience of trench warfare had two consequences. One was rejection of war. Wilfred Owen's poems and Siegfried Sassoon's poems, as well as Robert Graves' novel, or at least his book on his experiences in the First World War, show a rejection of war and a rejection of nationalism. This is something that would affect the post-war period. But on the other side, there was a glorification of war, a sense that one could only find camaraderie, true brotherhood in war. And that would have its own consequences, certainly in Germany and in Italy, with the rise of fascism. Storms of Steel is the one book that encapsulates, or at least tries to argue for that type of response to war. It was a very, very popular book in Germany after the war. And it's the exact opposite of Eric Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front, where that book blames German nationalist professors teaching a generation about Germany's, nationalist glory, and kind of creating a sense that war demanded the ultimate sacrifice and that one should be happy to fulfill it. Now, that was in itself attacked in the book. The book rejects that idea, and therefore you have these two competing ideas that would shape the mindset of the post-war period. In the Eastern Front, however, the war was much more mobile. The Russians were defeated by the Germans in 1914, and they were driven back. The Russians did attempt a massive offensive led by Sasonov. It's called the Sasonov Offensive, and in 1916, but that failed. Russia was in the middle of a period of political instability that had started with the Russian defeat in the Russo-Japanese War in 1904. It had had a revolution in 1905, a revolution that forced the Tsar, the Emperor of Russia, Nicholas II, to accept concessions, accept the creation of a constitutional parliament called the Duma, and for a time accept constitutional limits to his autocratic power. The Tsar was able to, by 1911, 1912, regain much of that power and kind of cut the, pulled the rug out of the liberals' feet. And liberals became very upset at the Tsar and would, after the disasters of the First World War, not support the monarchy. In addition to that, you had social revolutionaries who were the heirs of the radical anarchist movement in the 1870s, and they wanted land to the peasants. In addition, you had socialists, the Russian Social Democratic Party, but that party was divided between the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. The division was centered on the ideas of Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, whose name is better. Whose revolutionary name is much more prominent. His revolutionary name was Lenin, and Lenin argued for a socialism that could take place and could triumph in Russia, because he argued that although Russia was not ready for a full-fledged socialist workers' revolution, Russia was not industrialized. Lenin argued that Russia's proletariat, the industrial workers, could take over if they were led by a professional revolutionary party that could give the working class a revolutionary consciousness and lead its revolutionary actions. Mensheviks disagreed with that. They believed that Russia had to have a full capitalist revolution and development, that Russia was still a monarchy and therefore a feudal state. And they argued that Russia had to overthrow the monarchy with a capitalist revolution before they could even attempt a socialist revolution. Lenin and the Bolsheviks disagreed. They believed they could stage a workers' revolution that could be successful if led by this professional revolutionary party that Lenin called the vanguard of the proletariat. That became those parties were also active during this time and would eventually overthrow the Tsar in March of 1917, establishing a provisional government and the workers and soldiers Soviets throughout Russia. That would then be ended by the Bolshevik Revolution in October based on the Russian calendar, but November in the Western calendar, in 1917, where the Bolsheviks and Lenin would take over. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, and we will try a live video cast on Thursday. I will post that Wednesday. Okay? Bye.